E-invoicing is a very relevant topic right now. Everyone's concerned or curious about e-invoicing. So e-invoicing is similar to what Saudi did with their e-invoicing, which is called ZATCA. The UAE has its own framework, which is called PINT AE. So PINT AE, it borrows from this larger entity called PEPOL, which is a European entity, which is what most European countries will be using for their e-invoicing. So UAE has borrowed their standard and created its own variant. It's called PINT AE, which stands for PEPOL International Arab Emirates, right? For the United Arab Emirates. So this is their format basically, and it has to connect to ERPs, and every time an invoice has been issued from the ERP, the invoice has to reach the government, i.e. the FTA. And the reason they're doing that is because they want to ensure tax compliance and that there is less room for any fraud or tax evasion, right? So this is broadly what e-invoicing is all about.
After integration, so every invoice will be transferred and every invoice will be sent to the relevant authorities like government?
Yeah, so that's the goal. The goal is to have a seamless connection between businesses and the government, and that there's a single connection between the two of them. Right now that does not exist. Obviously, if you look at tax submissions, right, we have deadlines and we have to submit our taxes in their format. There's no integration between the two. So with e-invoicing, the goal is to have ERPs connect directly to the government so that every time an invoice has been raised, it reaches the government right that instant. So this is the plan, but it's being phased out in phases. Obviously, it's going to take some time. So the government has released 2 phases for the rollout of e-invoicing, and there are also 2 categories. So there are the companies who earn over 50 million in annual turnover. They have a sooner deadline. The companies who earn less than 50 million in annual turnover has more time, but it's somewhere in the middle 2026, later 2027 period where it's going to be mandatory for businesses in the UAE. So basically the government wants to ensure that all invoices reach the government in time without any fraudery.
What about those people who are still using Word or PDF invoices? Where they will go? What they will do?
They will have to choose a system. So it's with the rollout of e-invoicing, now more than ever, it's going to be more important to have a system. And doesn't have to be an ERP system necessarily. It could be an accounting system. I think it's quite rare to find people who still use probably if they're a very small company, they might be using Excel to run their accounts, but most of them will be using some kind of accounting software, albeit rudimentary. So everything, even simple accounting softwares have, from what I've heard, tried integrating to the new e-invoicing standard. There is the ERP provider or the ERP system, let's say in our case Odoo, and there is PINT AE, which is the e-invoicing platform. Right? There's no way of connecting the ERP directly to PINT AE. So there is some entity in the middle which is called an ASP, which is an Accredited Service Provider. These are companies that are regulated and approved by the government to connect to PINT AE. So
to manage the transactions.
ASPs can talk to PINT AE, ERPs can talk to ASPs. ERPs cannot bypass ASPs and talk directly to PINT AE. Right?
Okay.
And the job of ASP is basically take data from the ERP, convert that data into the format that PINT AE requires or wants. And from what I understand, the format is basically, it has to follow UBL, which is the Universal Business Language, right? It has to be in a standard XML format, and it has certain fields that should be existing in the invoice, like payment term, date of payment, timestamp. All of these things have to be included in the invoicing export. So ASP is going to make sure these things are there, and it's going to transform the data in a way that PINT AE is going to accept that data. So the ASP list has not been, as of shooting, it hasn't been released, but it should be releasing out soon. I think in November or December 2025, we should be seeing that list come out. You need to choose your ASP, and the ERP provider has to connect with that ASP. Okay. So that's how it works.
So who will be choosing the ASP? Is it you or the customer or the government? That who will be your ASP provider?
So the government obviously is going to list the approved ASP, similar to how the FTA has as a list of approved ERP providers in the UAE.
Okay.
Who are tax compliant, who have the necessary localizations in the UAE, right? The FTA list is a thing. So the FTA will similarly release another list of ASPs, of approved accredited service providers in the UAE, right? and it's up to the customer to choose which ASP they would like to go ahead with. So as an ERP service provider, we can give our recommendations. We can even consult with ASPs and figure out how the pricing works differently for each of them. But at the end of the day, it's the customer's call to choose which ASP works the best for them. And the ASPs, from what I understand, most of them do provide APIs which will connect directly to the ERP.
So how soon we are getting rolled out for this integration?
You have time till 31st July 2026 to choose an ASP, and the mandatory go live date, the soonest, I think this applies for the companies with above 50 million dirhams of annual turnover. They have to go live by 1st January 2027. So we have quite some time. We have at least a year.
Amazing.
So they've got 6 months to choose an ASP, another 6 months to make sure their ERP connects to the ASP, so that the ERP can talk to the FTA.